Morning, I'm Randy. I'm a cheap audio man. Thanks for watching me on YouTube. If you're new here, please subscribe. I think we have 110 or 115 subscribers. That's very exciting to me. Subscribe, get in on the ground floor. It probably means nothing to you, but it means a lot to me. It's Speaker Saturday. We have 5 bookshelf speakers, all under $200 retail, and I'm going to tell you which ones I think are the best, which ones aren't the best, which ones I think are really, really good value. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and let's talk about cheap speakers. I don't know what to do with my coffee. I'm very excited about my coffee mug. It's my Roswell coffee mug. I purchased it in Roswell, New Mexico, and I forgot it at a friend's house for about a year. So I just got it back. Very nice. Roswell, New Mexico. Highly recommend it. So what do we have today? Well, we have the Klipsch R51M, the Polk S15, the Polk T15, the Fluance Signature Series bookshelf, and the Sony Core bookshelf. All of them under 200. This currently on Amazon 120, but it regularly goes on sale for 120 down to about 75. This is the Fluance 199. Doesn't really go on sale unless you can get like an Amazon warehouse open box thing. This is the S15 or T15. Let's see, $90 on Amazon. Sometimes it goes even lower than that. This is the S15, $180 on Amazon. And the Klipsch 144 on, it's not on Amazon. You can get it from like Crutchfield or Best Buy. You can get it there. And I think they don't sell those on Amazon because they're quite popular. Okay, so let's talk about build quality first. Build quality would have to go to the Polk S15 and the Fluance Signature. This one, rounded edges. It's got this nice plastic baffle covering. It's just a really good built, really well built speaker. Pretty inert, very inert. However, as we're going to discuss, build quality does not always equal sound quality. Then the Fluance. The rest of these, I'd say the T15 is probably the most poorly built. And the Sony and the Klipsch are, I don't know, they're pretty similar. They all have vinyl wraps. I mean, these are inexpensive. As audio, in the audiophile world, they're inexpensive speakers. They're all built decently, except for this one. Not really good. Let's talk about some specs. All of them are 8 ohms with the exception of the Sony. Sony is 6 ohms. Sensitivity, Sony is 87, Fluance 85, S15 is 88, T15 is 89, and the Klipsch is 93. So the Klipsch is the most sensitive, which means it'll play louder at the same given power put through all these. So 85 sensitivity. That seems a little low, and it kind of is. But I will tell you, I've designed and built some speaker crossovers, and depending upon how sensitive, the tweeters and woofers are going to have different sensitivities, and to bring down the sensitivity of the tweeter down to kind of the woofer's level, you put some resistors in there, and that makes the speaker more balanced, okay? So we'll get into the sound later, but 85 dB, while pretty low, I think it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I've tried this on a lot of different amps. The rest of these, there should be zero problem driving any of these. So let's talk about the sound. Let's talk about bass. Okay, so bass is all over the map with these. Let's talk about the bad bass, S15. It is muddy. It is thick, not accurate, boomy. And this has a bracket on the back with a keyhole, so they're really meant to go against the wall, and that makes them sound even worse. It just doesn't, there's just way too much bass. It's not balanced. It covers up the mids. It's, no. Bass on the Fluance. Thicker, louder, and it's surprising because it's front ported. This front ported, the rest are rear ported. Okay, so the Fluance bass is actually pretty good, and it's interesting because I read some reviews from highly, regarded websites, and a few of them mentioned that this doesn't really have bass, and I found that very surprising. I will say though that when you are only reviewing one speaker, not comparing the speakers, that I guess you could come to that conclusion. I don't feel that way. I don't feel that way at all. I think it's got very good bass, if not the best bass out of all of these. When I mean that, I mean balanced, accurate, fairly deep for what they're rated. And you can look up the ratings. They're all kind of similar. 60 hertz down to about 55 hertz. They all go lower depending upon placement. So bass on the Sony, very tight, very balanced. Bass is affected greatly by where you place the Sony. Bass on the Klipsch, very similar. It's tight. It can be accurate if you get the right placement of the speaker, and it's good. It's good. So if I'm ranking these from best bass to worst bass, and when I say best, I mean most accurate and most balanced, it's going to be the Fluance. Yeah, and the bass on this one, I didn't really even mention it. Here's the thing. It's $80. It's not very good. We're gonna just take it, put it over here. We lost one. It's a sad day. That speaker's not very good. I don't think it's worth $80. I don't think it's worth $50. Okay, so we lost one, and that's fine. They can't all be winners. So, I would say best bass, second best bass, third best bass. I would say these two can kind of tie depending upon where this one is placed. Okay, absolutely worst bass. It's just not good. Let's talk about mid-range. So mid-range on these is different. Mid-range is not good on this one simply because the bass just spills over into the mid-range, and the bottom of the mid-range is bloated. It's veiled. Male vocals sound veiled. Female vocals sound veiled. Worst bass, worst mid-range, except for the bad speaker we just exiled. Mid-range is probably equal on these two, the Sony and the Klipsch. I say the Sony probably has the top end of the mid-range is more pronounced on the Sony, just by titch. These really mid-range about the same. They're both clear. They're not veiled. Very solid. This one's very good for rock and roll. This one's a little bit better. It's as good in rock and roll, but it's better for different genres of music. I think acoustic guitars sound better on the Sony. Mid-range on the Fluance is far and away the best. It's very well balanced. Male and female vocals sound great. Acoustic guitars sound great. It's just the best mid-range. I'm not saying these are bad. I'm saying they're not as good as this one. They're about equal on the Klipsch and the Sony. Let's talk about treble. All right, so in speakers of this price range, usually they do one or two things really well. So the Klipsch and the Sony do treble very well. The Polk S15 does not do treble very well. It's just all jumbled up and bassy and covered up and not detailed. If you listen to the Fluance compared to the Sony and the Klipsch, you're going to feel like the treble is rolled off or not nearly as pronounced, and that is true. Oftentimes on a brighter speaker, and I would consider these both brighter speakers than the Fluance, the treble response is higher, and that gives the listener a feeling of greater detail. I will say that the Fluance is just as detailed, if not more so, than the Klipsch and the Sony. However, if you're A/Bing these speakers, these are going to sound clearer and sparklier and have more, and treblier. I made up that word, trebly. Okay, so it depends on what type of listening experience that you enjoy. Personally, for me, I enjoy a bit of a rolled off speaker. It still has the clarity and it still has the detail. It's just not as in your face, and you're not going to hear it as well at lower volumes, probably below about 75 dB. However, with a rolled off speaker, when you turn up the volume, it tends to balance out a little bit better. When you turn up the volume on a more trebly pronounced speaker, it can get shouty. It can get what some people would call fatiguing, which means it starts to hurt your ears after a while. This is a speaker you could listen to all day long and never get listening fatigue. So here's the thing with these two. You can change the treble response by directionality of the speaker. Some people call that toe in. If you face these directly at you, they are going to have a more pronounced treble response. If you face them directly into the room, pointing straight forward, and you're sitting in the middle, that treble response is going to be somewhat reduced. So that goes into what's called off-axis performance. Off-axis performance means where you're sitting in regards to the speaker. If you're sitting directly in front of the speaker, treble's good. If you're sitting to the side, the treble is reduced. This has better off-axis. However, that's not necessarily a good thing if you don't particularly care for the sound. If you don't care for these sounds, these speakers sound, or if it's too bright, you can mitigate that by simply towing them out from you. With this one, you get what you get because the off-axis is pretty good. So you're not really going to be able to affect the sound on this one nearly as much. Yeah, brighter, can feel more detailed. I'm not saying they're more detailed. They can feel more detailed than this one. But for me, I kind of prefer this. What are my final thoughts? So my final thoughts. This one, I think you should avoid it. Unless, I don't know, I suppose it could be good for like home theater, maybe surrounds. Actually, the T15, you know, if you're in a pinch and you need some surround speakers and you don't listen to much music, that's going to be fine. They're cheap. They have a keyhole, you can mount them to your wall. This might be okay for home theater. it's not for me. All the speakers that I talk about that I would consider good could be used standalone without a subwoofer. All of these can benefit, with the exception of this one. No, all these can benefit from a subwoofer. I would say out of the four, this one probably, even though on paper it shows like a 60 hertz low end, it to me sounded the fullest on the bottom, and you could get away without a subwoofer. You can get away without a subwoofer on all these and still really enjoy the experience. I'm just saying a subwoofer is going to add obviously to the low end and fill out the frequency range. But even in a 2-channel listening, these three are very good, very good. With rear porting, you can change the sound depending upon where you put them. This one, the Klipsch, I felt had a very sweet spot of where it sounded the best and most cohesive and most balanced. To me, that was about 6 to 9 inches from the wall, kind of towed straight out into the room. The Sony, I could bring out a bit further, 10, 12 inches. The Sony to me seemed like it had a little bit more punchy bass at lower volumes than the Klipsch. At 75 to 85 dB, they both sounded good and balanced. So to me, this one sounded the best at higher volumes, and even at lower volumes, it still sounded very well balanced. Again, that treble response is a little bit rolled off, and it depends upon what you like. So let's give the awards. That's these little statues that are out in front of us, and I've done this once before. The monkey that's looking out into the wilderness and looking at all the speakers that are better than him goes to the Polk. The thing about this Polk is really well built, and it's got really nice, I don't know, badging and things like that, and that makes me nervous on a speaker that's less than $200. Because to me, I think they're spending more on how the speaker looks than how it sounds. I would rather have a very straightforward looking speaker in that price range that performs better and sounds better than a pretty speaker that doesn't sound as good. So, okay. The little rock and roll skull is going to go to the Klipsch. It's very good. It's very good at rock and roll. Depending upon placement, it can be very good at with a variety of genres of music. It's a very good speaker. It's very good. At $144, it does what it's supposed to do. It retails for like $280. Don't ever pay $280 for the Klipsch. It regularly goes on sale. I got an open box for $118, but they retail for $144 right now. All right, the Crazy Skull is going to go to the Sony. This Sony, to me, is the best value up here. At $120, it's remarkable. And it regularly goes on sale all the way down to like $75. And it's probably getting ready to do that for Black Friday. It's very good. You can see it's got 3 drivers. I would say it's a 2.5 driver, because the top little tiny tweeter is really kind of a super tweeter, but it extends all the way out to 50,000 hertz. Obviously, I can't really hear much above 15,000 hertz. But it gives you the sense of airiness, headroom on the treble. So it sounds very good. And if you get the placement right, it's an absolute remarkable speaker. So I'm saying this is a great speaker, if not exceptional speaker, at $120. The Fluance gets the Buddha. It's my Zen speaker. It does things as well as speakers twice its price. The mid-range is very full while still being clear. The bass is full while still being tight. And the highs are ever so slightly rolled off, which allows me to turn up the music without it just getting super loud. You know when you turn up a speaker, maybe a lower end speaker, and it gets just really, just almost unenjoyable. With the Fluance, you can turn it up, and when you turn up a speaker, you can start to feel the music, the bass, and it really fills the room out. None of these are probably going to be good for very large rooms. These are good for medium to smaller rooms. But I'm not saying, the Klipsch, the Fluance, and the Sony actually did a really admirable job at, you know, filling out a big room. I tested these in my living room and it's huge. They're good, they're great. This is good, this is exceptional, and this truly is remarkable to me. It may not be everybody's cup of tea though. With the rolled off top end, if you only listen at lower volumes, you're probably not going to prefer the Fluance over the Klipsch or the Sony. For my listening, the way that I like to listen to music, this is far and away the best speaker on here. The build quality, the sound, very similar to the ELAC B6 original generation, with better detail and more controlled bass. I think the Fluance even compares in sound quality to, I would say, the ELAC reference series. So if you're looking at the reference really hard and you can't afford it, the Fluance might be a really good alternative. If you're looking at the ELAC B6.2, much brighter speaker than the original B6, either one of the Klipsch or the Sony is going to be a really good alternative. And this one's half the price and this one's even lower. So, and I'm sorry I use ELAC as a reference just because I like those speakers. Extraordinary value. All of these go through the normal channels of distribution, dealer, and then to the consumer. The Fluance is a direct-to-consumer product, and that kind of, you're getting more speaker for your money with a Fluance speaker. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like it and subscribe. It would really help me out. And with that, I'm Randy. I'm the Cheap Audio Man.